I'm Prashubh. I'm working as an assistant professor in the Naval Architecture Department of Amit University. Today this session will discuss on dynamic behavior of composites. So before going into the dynamic behavior, we'll first have a discussion on what is composites, just go through the composite material, and even the static properties we will try to cover somewhat, and then finally we will end up with the dynamic behavior of composites. So what is composite? A composite material is made from two or more constituent materials which have different physical and chemical properties, and when they are combined they tend to have characteristics different from the original one. So that's how we can define composite materials. So why composites are important? The composites are lightweight materials normally. Composites are lightweight materials normally. The strength to weight ratio of composites is very high, and even if compared to metals, composites have a higher strength to weight ratio. Now coming to the classification of composites, so based on the metrics, composites can be classified as polymer metrics, metal metrics, and ceramic metrics. And based on the reinforcement, it can be classified as fiber reinforced as well as particle reinforced composites. So composites can be a mixture of metrics plus reinforcement. The reinforcement can be fibers as well as particles, or we can call them as fillers. So what are polymer matrix composites? Polymer matrix has the matrix, we can take an example as epoxy, and in addition to the epoxy we can mix fibers. Fibers can be synthetic as well as natural fiber. So most of the composites we see around are polymer matrix composites, where fibers are synthetic mostly, which includes glass fiber, carbon fiber, etc. The manufacturing of composites started with polymer matrix with synthetic fibers in order to replace metals to a large extent. The current trend is to replace, even in the polymer matrix itself, even to replace the synthetic fibers with natural fibers. Some of the natural examples of natural fibers include jute, sisal, etc. So here we will talk about mostly jute fiber composites. That's we will limit our discussion to polymer matrix with natural fiber composites, where we will specifically talk about jute fiber, and that also bidirectional jute fiber. And while speaking about polymer matrix itself, we will come across terms like symmetric matrix, unsymmetric matrix, the laminates. Laminates are nothing but the stack up of different layers in polymer composites, and the different layers can be joined one by one in different directions also. It can be like 45 degrees, 30 degrees, 60 degrees, and in bidirectional polymer matrix polymer composites using bidirectional fibers can also be made, where the fibers will be placed in 0-90 directions. That is bidirectional fibers which are 0 and 90 degree orientations. And that will be a brief about polymer matrix. Then coming to metal matrix composites, where as we have already defined, it is a combination of two or more materials. So one of the constituents in metal matrix will be a metal. The other can be organic compound. It can be a metal or else an organic compound. Then coming to ceramic matrix combines materials like ceramic fibers as well as the matrix itself, and the carbon fiber can be one good example of ceramic composites. Then based on reinforcement, like I said, we have like fiber reinforced composites as well as particle reinforced composites. In fiber reinforced composites, like we have already discussed, 0-90 degrees, that is bidirectional, where and you have unidirectional composites which has only 0 degrees, and you have different stacking sequences like 45, 30 and 60 degrees, and any other angle in between based on the strength requirements. And particle reinforced composites, we can mix ceramic fillers as well as any other particulates in the matrix, or else we can make composites which are of the hybrid type, where we mix the fibers in the matrix as well as the particles. So it's like, from the manufacturing perspective, mix the particulates in the matrix first, and then that will be applied to the fibers, so that we get a uniform distribution of particulates all over the material. Now we come specifically to the natural fiber composites, where we have where we will discuss mostly on jute fiber composites with filled with ceramic fillers. So this will be hybrid composites. Here we have jute fibers in the raw form, and this can be taken as unidirectional fibers, and on bottom we have 0-90 bidirectional jute fibers. And in addition to the fibers, we will use ceramic fillers like ZNO, TiO2, that is titanium dioxide, and zirconium dioxide, ZrO2. And here we will discuss somewhat on manufacturing also. We limit our scope to hand layup manufacturing, but there are other methods of manufacturing composites like the vacuum bag or resin transfer mold, etc. So here we will limit to hand layup manufacturing, where normally the matrix, for here we take an example as epoxy. The matrix is the epoxy. So in the epoxy we will mix fillers, whether it is ceramic or non-ceramic. One of the example for non-ceramic will be RGO, that is reduced graphene oxide. So any fillers can be mixed like ZNO or RGO, TiO2, ZrO2, and these can be mixed till agglomeration, so that we get a uniform distribution, and then fibers are laid down in layer by layer. That is, in the first layer we will use the fibers and place the matrix filled with fillers on top, and then another stack of fibers on top, and like that we will sum up to get like different layers, maybe 4 layers, 6 layers composites. And we use hardener also along with the matrix, so that we get a good curing. Curing is very important in manufacturing composites. The whole strength of the composite depends on how better or how good it is cured. Now we come to the properties of the composites. Here we will discuss static as well as the dynamic properties. The static properties include tensile strength, compressive strength, flexural, interlaminar shear strength, impact strength, as well as water absorption. And in the dynamic properties, we will discuss complex modulus, damping factor, and glass transition temperature. So static properties, we have given figures here for tensile testing and flexural testing. So tensile testing is the same kind of test we use for metals, and that can be done in UTM, that is universal testing machine, where we fix one end and try to pull the other end, thereby recording the force values in terms of load sensors, and finally we can calibrate to get the strains as well as the modulus. The specimens for tensile testing include dimensions of 300 mm in length and 25 mm width, and with the thickness varying depending upon the number of layers. And flexural testing is 3-point bending testing, as given in the figure. So same machine can be used with different fixtures. That's the same UTM can be used with the different fixtures for flexural testing. And compression testing, we can use the same machine but with a different specimen of very short length in order to avoid buckling. The specimen size for compression strength testing will be 25 mm by length and 25 mm by width, and of definite thickness. Then interlaminar shear strength, that also can be done in a 3-point bending testing machine, where the specimen length is 50 mm. So we have to get a very small fixture for that. The specimen size length will be 50 mm, the width will be 25 mm. And impact strength testing can be done using Charpit impact testing machine. Water absorption can be done with a small beaker with a very short specimen size of 20 mm by 20 mm. And dynamic properties, we calculate complex modulus, damping factor, as well as glass transition temperature. So here we will discuss two methods. One will be the Oberst beam method and the other will be the dynamic mechanical analysis. So here we come to the moisture testing method, where we will place the specimen in a beaker, and based upon the percentage gain in weight of the samples immersed, we will find out the water absorption. There are some things to be noted, like the weight increases until saturation of the specimen, where no more water will be absorbed, and the main reasons for water absorption will be interfacial adhesion, that is poor adhesion, the voids present, as well as the natural fiber has a tendency to absorb water, and the presence of fillers actually restrict water absorption. In dynamic analysis, that's our main part. So dynamic analysis, what we do is we will subject the specimen to a alternating force, and the response will be picked up using an accelerometer, and the properties we get from dynamic analysis will be complex modulus, the damping factor, glass transition temperature, as well as the interfacial, and we can predict interfacial adhesion to a certain extent. Okay. In Oberst beam method, we use a cantilever beam, and the cantilever beam will be divided into number of segments, as can be seen from the first figure, and impact hammer will be used, that is in the second figure, and impact hammer will be used to excite the specimen, and the specimen vibrates. The response of the vibration will be picked up from an accelerometer that is given in figure 1 again, that is attached to the specimen, and the location of the accelerometer will be varied based on the number of segments as the specimen is divided. And in the third figure, we have a non-contact type of vibration pickup, that is an accelerometer itself, but it is a non-contact type. So whenever we have to analyze specimens with lower temperatures, where you cannot fix the accelerometer onto the specimen, a non-contact type will help to get the data. and the same principle is followed, like excite the specimen using a impact hammer, where an impact hammer is having an inbuilt sensor so that it excites the specimen and the specimen tend to vibrate, and the response will be picked up with an accelerometer. Yeah, this is a representation of the Ober's beam method, where you can see the impact hammer which is about to strike the specimen, and accelerometer will be attached to the specimen, and we have a built-in sensor in the impact hammer which makes it easy to excite the specimen, and the response is got using a DAC. It is taken to a DAC and the data is analyzed using software. Here we can see the free vibration response of jute epoxy composites in the form of a cantilever. Here we have a frequency response analysis as well as time response, and both the figures you can show the peaks also, and here in the time domain we can see that the signals are getting damped. So the material is like highly viscoelastic, so that you can get a measure of damping also from the specimens. The next slide shows the frequency response as got from the software, and we can see that the frequency tends to go to a maximum at certain locations. Those we call the modes. So we have like first mode, second mode of vibration, and from the slide the frequency for the first mode of vibration is 25.34 Hertz and damping is 0.19, which we directly obtain from the software. This slide explains the stress strain relationship for the linear viscoelastic materials while doing the dynamic analysis. Here we have constants A0, A1, etc. Into sigma is equivalent to B0, B1, that is along with the differential, into epsilon. So if we consider the generalized Hooke law, we can say that A0 sigma plus sum of I 1 to n AI dou raised to dou by dou t of sigma is equal to B0 epsilon plus sum of j equal to 1 to n Bj dou by dou t of epsilon. So we are connecting stress and strain, where stress is represented as sigma and strain is represented as epsilon, and the coefficients are A0 to A1 and B0 to B1. The complex modulus can be expressed from these terms, where sigma we take as sigma 0 e raised to j omega t, and epsilon as epsilon 0 e raised to j omega t, and the equation is rearranged as A0 sigma plus A1 sigma dot plus A2 sigma dot is equivalent to B0 epsilon plus B0 epsilon dot plus B2 epsilon dot. So rearranging terms, we get sigma 0 by epsilon 0 is equal to B0 plus j omega B1 plus j omega square B2 by A0 plus j omega A1 plus j omega square A2, and this can be expressed as E star, which is the modulus, or we can call it as Young's modulus, as a combination of E dash plus j E double dash, where E dash is called the storage modulus and E double dash is called the loss modulus. E dash represents the energy storing capacity of the material, while E double dash represents the energy dissipating capacity of the material. So here the modulus is represented as a complex term as E dash and E double dash. Here we represent the modulus and damping. The loss factor tan delta or the damping factor can be expressed as a dimensional number and is the ratio of loss modulus and storage modulus, where tan delta is equal to E double dash by E, and E dash is equal to E cos delta, where delta is the phase difference between the stress and strain. and E double dash is equal to E sine delta. Damping ratio is C by Cc, and the critical damping coefficient Cc is equal to root of 2m omega n. The calculation of Young's modulus can be done according to this formula: 12 rho L raised to 4 Fn square by h square Cn square, where rho is the density of the material, L is the length, Fn is the resonant frequency, that is the peak value of frequency, h is the thickness. The second method of dynamic analysis will be dynamic mechanical analysis, where an oscillating force will be given to the specimen, and a sample response, which is again an oscillating response, will be recorded, and modulus can be calculated from the elastic response, while damping can be calculated from the viscous response. So viscous response will be mostly out of phase, and the graph shows the phase shift as well as the method of calculating the damping. In dynamic mechanical analysis, we have two modes. One will be the temperature scan, other will be the frequency scan. In temperature scan, the modulus and damping is recorded as the sample is heated, that is, we will subject the specimen to a single frequency, and the temperature will be varied in the temperature scan, and in the frequency scan, the frequency will be varied keeping the temperature constant. So here we will discuss mostly the temperature scan DMA. The temperature scan DMA is conducted by varying the temperature at a single frequency. The storage modulus, loss modulus, damping and glass transition temperature can be analyzed, and addition can be obtained from the Collet-Collet plot. Here we have the DMA equipment, and DMA is carried out in a 3-point bending mode. The specimens are kept in the specimens are kept here, and the chamber for maintaining the temperature is also present. And if we want to do the experiments with lower temperatures, that is minus sub-zero temperatures, we can use a liquid nitrogen storage tank also. The oscillating excitation can be given by means of an electrodynamic shaker, which works on the principle of induction, where the force is given by L IB, where L is the length of the conductor, I is the current, and B is the field vector, magnetic field vector. And here we can see that the body of the shaker will move in a very high frequency, which is supported at the upper flexure as well as at the lower flexure, and this will excite the specimens in a harmonic way. Here we have the temperature storage modulus plot, and we can see that as the temperature is minimum, that is in the minus degree ranges, the storage modulus has higher peak values, and as the temperature increases, that is near the glass transition range, the modulus tends to come down, and there will be a specific point where the storage modulus will fall very drastically, which we call it as the glass transition temperature. So this storage modulus versus temperature plot can be used to predict the glass transition range as well as the glass transition temperature. And the material tends to come from a glassy state to a rubbery state as the temperature increases. This is the temperature loss modulus plot. This is the temperature damping factor plot, where the range of the glass transition can be extended from the can be got from the temperature damping plot as well as from the storage modulus plot. The glass transition range can be obtained the range can be obtained from both the storage modulus plot as well as the glass transition range. So we can see that the glass transition range, the transition starts somewhere around 40 degrees to and it extends up to 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. This shows the scanning electron microscopy of the specimens subjected to 3-point bending, and the first figure has adhesion and the second figure shows the matrix cracks. The composites has wide application in almost any field we can think of. Now from the building and construction industry through the automobile industry, marine sector, aeronautics, electronic manufacturing, railways, soundproof materials, toys, any sector we can think of, now composites are finding applications. So here we conclude the discussion on the dynamic behavior of composites, especially the natural fiber jute epoxy composites. Hope this session is useful to everyone. Thank you.